Yeah.
I saw your pick guards out there, Mick. All those Strat pick guards hanging there. And it made me think of I just picked up a 74 Strat, and it's got a broken neck pickup.
Oh, wow.
So I'm looking for a 70s pickup or something. I should speak to you. You can give me advice on what I should put in there.
I've definitely got something.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to Viewers, Comments and Questions. That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here.
Simon here.
Special guest Simon Jarrett. All the way in from Canada.
Yeah, that's right. BC, Canada.
Very good.
Yeah.
So we've been filming with Simon today. Simon has graciously agreed to join us for VCQ and answer all your questions about everything Kingsley and everything incredible guitar playing, all of the fun stuff.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I'm just going to sit here in the middle and kind of nod my head a lot.
A rose between two thorns.
Yeah.
Dan, why don't you tell the people who you were hanging out with this weekend? Talking of roses.
I built a pedal board for someone who I've become a good friend with over the last few months, and he invited me to come and hang out in the south of France with him for the weekend, and it was the lovely Seal.
Oh, wicked!
So I've been hanging out with
It's a
Seal
mutual
for the
friend.
weekend. His yes, I saw it. So the page TS is on the board,
Yeah, he's got a.
and it's
he's
got
a few
signed by
pedals.
you on the side.
Yeah.
And I'll have to show you.
Wicked.
Here we go. Here's the.
Turns out Mr. Seal is a massive pedal.
He's a really nice guy, and
There's the board.
oh, lovely.
And just in case you're confused,
Lovely.
like the Seal, you know?
Yeah. He's totally into
Kiss from a
guitar
Rose.
and
Crazy.
gear, and guitar tones and amps and pedals and.
I've got to show. This is the board.
Yeah.
Let's just see if everyone shut their eyes for 1 second.
If you stand in front of the camera, it won't be able to see us.
All right.
There you go.
Let's do that.
And then don't knock the room mics when you step back, which is what I would do.
That's amazing, Dan. So isn't he? Does he have a place in Saint-Tropez or something, or close to there?
It's near there. It's
We'll just put his address on the screen.
yeah. It's Sinclair Lavendue, that area.
Yeah.
But
because we weren't far from there. Well, we were down the coast in Villefranche, which is near Nice, so it's not that far.
So a
Yeah.
couple of hours from Nice. He's just a beautiful guy, and we called Mick and Catherine, FaceTimed them.
Nice.
Seal saying, "Catherine, happy birthday." It was
Definitely one of the more surreal moments of our lives to date.
Yeah.
but such a beautiful guy, and his, he's still so passionate about music and being creative and songwriting, and just to get to hang out with him and just chat with him as we've done, and just such a beautiful guy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, really. I've come away from it completely inspired, and So that was lovely, really lovely.
Yeah, we got to hang out with him a bit last summer because
Right.
we were in Italy actually, and he was playing in Toulon or something in south of France.
Okay.
And it was a time when we were corresponding, and he picked up a couple of pedals and stuff like that. And he said, "Oh, well, you should come out and see the show." And it just didn't line up,
Right.
So he was so kind. He said, "Well, just if you can get to Toulon, I'll get you from the airport. I'll put you up and bring you to the show." And so that's what we did. And he treated us like, it was just wicked. He was so kind,
amazing.
and we hung out with him, and just a lovely guy.
Yeah,
so
beautiful.
passionate about music, as you say. And he's totally all into guitar.
Yeah.
I would never have known, right?
Yeah.
I was been on the phone to him for so long, and he's just
Yeah.
talking about his passion for music and his passion for gear and pedals, and he's not jaded. I'll say that.
No, he really isn't.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Goodness me.
So they're really beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, we say thank you to BV
Yes,
for
thank you,
moderating.
Thank you, BV.
Thank you for being here every week. We greatly appreciate it, as you know. And thanks for everyone for joining us from around the world. Let's see, Joel Silver is on from the United Kingdom.
Oh, hello, sir.
John 777 is on. He says, "What's up, Eagle Ray Rob?" Which means Eagle Ray Rob is on as well. Hey, Rob. Ranzer is here. Jeremy Summers is here. Guitars OK. Ian Rossiter from Edmonton, Alberta. Just down the road.
I have a brother-in-law who lives there.
Oh, cool.
In the small country of Canada.
Yeah.
Someone told me the Canadian landmass is bigger than China.
I think it's the second biggest landmass, isn't it, after Russia?
Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah,
Oh,
I think
wow.
that's right.
Madness, isn't it?
Yeah, it is crazy.
Madness.
If
It's
I'm
hot.
not mistaken, I think so.
Scott Curry's saying it's hot in Rhode Island.
It's hot here.
Michigan's in, DWC, we're melting. Montreal, Canada, Glenn Michael Thompson. Colin Diamond is on. Hello, Colin. Mickey Settlemere. Mickey, are you new? I normally notice the Mickeys, being a Mickey myself. Nice. James Blessed from Glasgow. Byron Krause's Big Dog is on from County Durham. Brian Batchelor from British Columbia. Oh,
Nice.
lots of Canadians in the house tonight.
Lovely.
Good. Todd Roy says it's huge here. Victor Gustafsson's in from Stockholm. Lovely. Okay, we will head to the super chats. I'll just see how many we've got. BV is normally telling me by now, but I will just check. 20. Yeah,
Dope
okay.
Biog says it's the longest coastline, he believes, the Canada thing.
I can believe that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yes, excuse me while I do this a sec.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Yes, we've got a few Canucks, they call themselves.
Yes.
Very good.
Is that the correct pronunciation?
Canucks.
Canuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Canucks.
As
How
opposed
long
to
have you been there
Canuck.
for?
We've been there since 1989, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you must have been a young'un when you moved out.
Yeah, I was like 23 maybe or something.
Had you just finished your guitar course? Or?
I'd finished at GIT, went back to Belgium for a year, and then came to Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Landed in Edmonton, then drove across the Rockies in my Volkswagen van, which had no heating
Nice.
in November. And so I dressed up in like layers and layers of clothes, and I was like the Michelin Man getting out to put gas in the car, you know. But there you are. It's good times.
Fantastic.
That is awesome. Okay, super chats then. First in this week is Sean Jeremilatos. Hey Sean.
Hey, Sean.
Always good to hear from you, buddy. Sean says, hello D&M and Simon.
Hi, Sean.
Always a treat to hear from Mr. Jarrett, so looking forward to this. By the way, your juggler into the Z80 would be nice. Yeah, funnily enough, Dan and I did a show using the juggler version 3 this morning, so you can look out for that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And we have the inevitable question, Simon.
Okay.
The inevitable question.
Oh.
Can you guess what it's going to be?
Well, it's not what's my favourite colour.
Which is?
I don't really know. I'd have to think about that.
It is, are you going to put the Reeve into production?
Okay, that one. Yeah. Yeah, so the Reeve, what the Reeve is basically a modified Harlot.
And
is
you
what
might
it
have
is.
seen this on Dan's pedal board.
So the Harlot.
How many people have contacted you about the Reeve?
Well, I haven't counted, but yeah, I've had quite a few actually.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes. No. So well. So here's the story: is Simon had made a couple of things for us to have a play with and try out, and the Reeve was one of them. I had the Harlot on my board for the longest time, and I was so happy with it that I just didn't need anything else. And it was when I was building a rig for Johnny Marr, and I was asked to put the best overdrive pedal I knew on there.
And you couldn't find any.
And so well,
because you don't have
no,
any
but the other
pedals.
thing, because I had the latest one, and
version 3.
the version 3,
Yeah.
and I had the one before that, the V2.
I think you had the V1.
The V1,
but
okay.
Yeah.
So, because I have loaned out it before, but I've always had the other one to sort of sit in its place.
Yeah.
And for Johnny's board, I put the V1 on there. It's like, because I had the V3, and it's like, no, put the because it's epic. He doesn't need all the he doesn't need the switching between it.
Yeah,
he just needs it to sound amazing. And
Yeah,
I knew
yeah.
it would. Got it. Loved it.
Awesome.
And then Ed said, I heard that overdrive pedal that's on Johnny's board. I'd love to try one out. I was like, take it and try it out, because putting together some stuff for Ed at the moment for some gigs that are coming up.
Yeah. And you were like,
And
get
I'm
those
like, here you
both those
go.
harlots off my hands.
And then I realised, I don't have a Harlot anymore, but you gave me this pedal a while ago, and that was the Reeve, and I put it on as like, done. Yeah. It was wonderful. Yeah. So that's, you know, all the Reeve that the people have seen on my board, and so what's the difference between the Reeve and the Harlot?
I'll tell you the basic difference. It's very, very similar. It's essentially the same circuit with a couple of changes. The biggest one is it's got a lows pot.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Whereas the Harlot has a 3-way lows switch.
Yep.
Okay, so you've got, and the lows pot on the Reeve is an input impedance control also.
Oh,
okay?
dig it.
So it's got that. So you've got lows and highs, gain and volume, right? And then the mode switch, well, on the Harlot, it's a highs switch, right? You've got 3 different top ends, and it gets kind of more sizzly as you go to the right. So what I wanted is to make the leftmost position on the high switch, which is very dark and smooth on the Harlot. I wanted that smooth top end with less sizzle, but to not be too dark.
Sure.
So bright enough, but not too sizzly.
Yeah.
So
positions, that's where I have mine and the tone
okay. There you go. So
and
positions 1 and 2 on the Reeve are slightly different than the Harlot.
Okay.
Okay, and they use different capacitors rather than capacitor resistor combinations in the Harlot.
Right.
So that's all the difference. Position 3 is the same on both pedals.
Okay.
Okay, so the most sizzly positions are the same. It's 1 and 2 are a little bit smoother on the Reeve without losing any top end.
Sure. Yeah. Because as soon as I put it on, I was in my Harlot territory.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't I was right there, but that bit of extra flexibility with the lows control.
Yeah.
And it was so. I mean, you know, the Harlot is and I could use either one, but the Reeve is staying on there. I'm so happy with it.
Cool.
Treble booster into the Reeve.
Nice. Yeah.
Without the Morse switch on.
Yeah. You probably don't need it with the treble booster into it.
Man.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So so there we go. So that's the Reeve.
Yeah.
But it's not going into production.
Well, I mean, this is right now. I'm making a few for people just on a custom one-off basis.
Yeah.
So if people email me and say they want one, I'll make you one. You know, but I don't have dedicated enclosures for them.
No.
So
Harlot,
I wasn't thinking of doing it because it's too similar to the Harlot.
Yes. So the Harlot does the same job basically.
Basically,
very
does the
similar
same.
job.
Yeah. So you know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, potentially it could be the Harlot version 4. Or it could be its own thing with a new enclosure. But I've got so many pedals that do similar things. I'm a bit reluctant to make new enclosures for another one that does another overdrive pedal.
And just to say, if you heard the Reeve on the board and you really dug it, you will be delighted with a Harlot.
Yeah.
Because it's it's in that territory.
Yeah, for sure.
Sean, that was actually from Michael Giliberto, not Sean Germolatos. Sorry, I completely mixed up. Michael, I'm really sorry. That was from Michael Giliberto. I think my brain is struggling. It's about 20,000 degrees in here, approximately. Sean Germolatos was first in, and he says, hello, D&M and Simon too. I found a nice combination of delay and modulation on my Chase Bliss Thermae, where I use it on a preset instead of chorus. Have you found ways to achieve your tones on compact boards? Well, interesting enough, I do exactly the same thing with the...
Free the tone.
No, well, yes, but the one I'm using at the moment is the Chase Bliss Tonal Recall Red knob.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. Set a very short delay, put a bit of modulation on it, super short. Set that as a preset because you can't tap it that short. And then that gives you like a doubly, chorusy kind of sound. I had to do a couple of Queen songs on Saturday night, and it was kind of that.
Beautiful.
I don't know whether he uses a doubling delay or what, but that kind of the sound that makes it sound like Brian May's in the room next to you.
Yep.
Lovely.
When they switch in the D key. So yeah, I do that. You guys, any sort of tricks and tips for using pedals that aren't designed for that thing to do something else?
Specifically delay.
Well, just I think what Sean is saying is that it's a compact board, so you have to sort of be creative with how you use certain things.
I've been having a lot of fun with the Keeley Halo because that, even though it's a delay, it does very reverby kind of things.
Yeah.
And on certain patches, I can actually just use that and not have reverb and still get my delay fix, kind of.
That's exactly how Andy uses it.
Yeah, and it's actually wicked. I've got to do what he does and get an expression pedal. I haven't done that yet, but
yeah,
I'm
it's
loving
a cool
it.
thing.
I'm loving it. Yeah.
I
Not in really Dan's nature to take any
to
shortcuts.
simplify. No, I just I think because what I'm doing at the moment, I've got this new band, the Danalogs. And listen, so we put out a thing on our Facebook saying our first gig is confirmed. It is Thursday, the 31st of July at the Vic in Swindon. Tickets are either going on sale this week or they're on sale now. And so many people have come, that want to go, and so that's brilliant.
Nice.
But because I've been so specific about what I need to get this, it's all 70s. We're doing old Genesis and Steely Dan and 10cc and it's
brilliant.
Just it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And some of these songs I've wanted to play since I was a kid, right? So it's completely self-indulgent, but the band is sounding great and it's all loads of harmonies and stuff. So anyway, I've been so specific about what I need to get this done. So I've not really been in the mood to simplify, even though my board is the most compact it's been in years, because I'm sort of aware of being on stage with keys and
is that the board that I saw in the other room?
Yeah,
that's not too bad. That's great the way you put that together.
It's great. I'm really delighted with it, but everything I need is in there. And I'm not compromising on anything. Flanger, phaser, it's all there.
I saw your video on it.
Right.
Wicked and
Thank
fantastic
you.
playing too, by
Thank
the way.
you. Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
Really nice.
Thank you. It's amazing what a good edit can do. Especially when I'm in charge of the edit.
AI, don't believe what you see, people. Mateusz Gimzinski, and my apologies, Mateusz, if I've said your name wrong. Gimzinski. My stock 2008 Les Paul sounds harsh and lacks that classic smooth tone. Would a set of quality PAF style pickups help? If so, which ones are best to buy in the EU? Okay, so if it's a Gibson Les Paul standard from 2008,
Boatsbuckers in there, maybe?
I'm not sure.
Not standard.
No.
I don't know.
Standards have had all kinds of pickups in down the years, but for a long time, and I don't know if it was as late as 2008, they had ceramic magnet pickups in.
Yes.
In the standards?
Yeah.
2008?
Well, in 2008, I don't know, but certainly before that, in the 90s.
Then,
So, find out what's in there currently, and that may inform your decision forwards, because I've always liked if they are burst buckers.
Yeah, they sound great.
Yeah, they're good, yeah.
If you've got burst buckers and whether they're 1s, 2s or 3s, to then look at another PAF type, I think you'd be dealing in small amounts. You'd be dealing in taste changes rather than it's a new day.
That's right, yeah.
But what would you say about 50s wiring in a guitar like that?
I mean, for me, it's a must. I mean, Les Paul, I love 50s wiring.
Yeah.
But many people, that's only if you want to ride your volume for better cleanup, and you don't like it getting darker, or maybe you like a treble bleed better. Some people put those in their guitars, but I would say for me, totally, 50s wiring is the way to go.
Yeah.
With a big tone cap.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How big?
Well, I like a 0.1, but
do you?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
For cleanup,
Yeah.
Cleanup, 0.1,
Interesting.
Yeah. We should try that later, Les Paul with the 0.1, and you'll see. It's pretty nice.
That's really, really... We're halfway through shooting a video. We sort of ran out of time, so we've paused to do VCQ, and we're going to go back to shooting the video after that. So that's one option for you, but it is hard when guitar players, we all use terms like smooth and harsh and other adjectives that don't really mean anything in the real world. So you'd probably need to just define a little more by what you mean by that. Because it could be that a really authentic set of PAF style pickups could actually make that worse. Because what PAF style pickups are is bright, clear, open.
Right.
Aren't they?
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas, depending on what amplifier you're using, you might be better off with a more powerful pickup because it might drive it into overdrive more, depending on the sound you want. So, clearly and obviously, pickups are going to make the biggest difference in any guitar by changing them. But you really need to know what you're changing from. You need to really understand what it is that you've got currently before you start spending hundreds and hundreds on endless sets of pickups and fall down that whole rabbit hole. And there might be something very simple you could do in your amp or on your pedal board a simple EQ pedal, for example, to mitigate some of that without having to pull the guitar to bits.
If it is burst buckers in there, they are quite bright.
Yeah.
They can veer on harsh,
Yeah.
depending, on what you like and how you set things. Whereas like classic 57s, I find to have a smoother top end and more mid-range, for
Yeah.
better or worse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if it is sounding harsh and it does have burst buckers, you could look at a pickup a bit more like that.
Yeah, I always like classic 57s in SGs for that very reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they just sound a bit fuller.
Yeah.
So yes, a pickup change definitely is worth looking at. Would say investigate 50s wiring. The other thing, and this is going to sound really prosaically, simply boring, right? We had someone came in on an experience day and brought a guitar, which is quite trebly sounding, famously, and was sort of full of loved this guitar because it had a personal connection and it meant a lot to them for what it was and who it came from and all the rest of it. And one of the things this person wanted to discover on the experience day was, how can I tame this guitar? Guess what we did?
Lower the pickups. Turn the volume down.
Turn the tone pot down.
Yeah.
Oh,
Of course,
okay.
yeah.
We turned the tone pot down, and the reason I'm not mentioning his name, because we can overlook the most simple
Yeah.
things that
Yeah,
will
yeah.
yield exactly the result you need. So,
Yeah.
start off with a kiss. Just
Yeah.
to quote Monty Python.
Python.
Just turn the
Kiss boy.
Yes.
just try
Yeah,
turning the tone
yeah,
down.
yeah.
I know, but honestly, we're just as guilty. We go through these incredibly complex solutions to things that sometimes just don't require them. So
Yeah.
give it a go. Give it a go.
Yeah.
Good luck. Good luck. Andrew R. Hello, Andrew. Nice to hear from you. He said, great to see Simon joining in.
Hey, Andrew.
For us too. In honour of your special guest, can you please take a Kingsley related question from the main chat? Yes, we can.
So I've got one here.
Yep.
And let me just go back to him. He says, this is from Remy. Simon, any news regarding the reverb you have been working on since a long time?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the trouble is I get involved in all these projects and things, and I've got this prototype spring reverb, and it sounds pretty good. It's a pedal,
Yeah.
but
How big?
I didn't. Well, it's the size of a Jester, but it doesn't have a. No, but it doesn't have a tank in it. It's a reverb. It's a tube-driven spring reverb,
Yes.
but I've just got the tank under the board, right?
Okay.
Okay, and
this
pros
like-
and cons.
Yeah.
Like that's how you can get a small footprint for the pedal.
Yeah.
But
But enough size for the spring.
you couldn't put a spring reverb under this pedal.
No.
It's a bit of a headache for a lot of people. So I'm kind of in two minds as to what to do. Should I pursue it like that and sell separate reverb tanks, or should I perhaps work on an amp top version? And that might be the way it goes. I haven't decided yet. So I've been stuck in preamp and overdrive land for so long. I really want to get off that and get back to this reverb project. So no promises, but hopefully this year I'll get that nailed and happening.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Someone was saying, is it the tremolo, the
Bard.
The Bard
Yeah.
is, he just said it's the best tremolo they've ever used, and they can't ever imagine it being not on their board.
Wonderful.
And so, like a tremolo like that, in a valve sense, it's more like a traditional bias trem using the valves.
It's a bias modulating tremolo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it's very similar to the trem you might find in, say, a Fender Vibro Champ.
Oh, wow.
Or also the Princeton, right, has a really nice bias modulating trem. But the Princeton, it's the power tubes which are modulated.
Yep.
Whereas in the Vibro Champ, it's one of the preamp tubes.
Oh.
And so that's the technique I'm using, obviously, because I've got it in a pedal.
Yeah.
But it works wonderfully. It's a lovely, smooth, undulating, soft. You can just leave it on, especially put it wet dry. Just have the bar on the tremolo on one side. It's just it's lovely.
Oh, that's a nice
I've got to
thing.
bring you guys one because I don't.
Yeah,
don't
you
think
do.
that's
That's a nice
one.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Dustin
Yeah.
Thiessen. Hey, Dustin, good to hear from you, buddy, as always. He says Google AI says Burst Bucker Pro 1 and 2
There you go.
were used in Les
Yeah.
Paul standards in 2008.
Okay. What's a Pro 1 and 2 though?
The Burst Buckers 1, 2, and 3, they get more aggressive
Oh,
and I think more potted.
right.
Or maybe something about the Burst Buckers were more and less potted. I can't remember what. But I think 1 is the weakest. 3 is the most decent
And it has
anyway.
It has Burst Buckers 1 and 2 in it.
Yeah.
Because I had an R8 from 2008, and it had both Buckers 1 and 2 in it. And when I first got it, I thought it was harsh.
Oh, right.
I mean, it's partly just your expectations.
Yeah, yeah.
After a while, I kind of got used to things and dialed it in differently,
Right.
and your ears adjust. But I did go through a process. I had a friend who had a lot of nice pickups, PAF-style pickups, and I tried like half a dozen different kinds.
Yeah.
And you know what happened at the end of the day? I found some brilliant ones, but at the end of the day, I had to give them all back to the guy. So I went and put my both Buckers back in, and, you know, updated the wiring and stuff, and I went, you know what, this sounds pretty good.
Sounds all right.
Yeah.
I had the opposite. Like in my Memphis 335, it had the MHS spec PAF style ones, and it's so confusing because Gibson makes so many humbuckers, right? And by and large, they say this sounds like a PAF. But I had the opposite experience with that guitar. That was really woolly and dark, and I know quite a lot of people that have swapped the MHSs out because they just don't bite enough.
I don't know what that is.
Memphis historical spec.
Ah, okay.
So it's the ones they used in Memphis, and then other people really love them. So it is like the point of telling that story is it's such a personal thing.
Yeah, completely.
And
Yeah,
then
of course, yeah.
flipping heck, how much capacitance have you got in your cable
Yeah,
to your amp? Have you got the bright switch on? How much tone suck have you got going on your pedal boards? It's such a system, such an ecosystem
Yes.
that there may well be an answer elsewhere, so you don't have to monkey with the guitar too much.
Monkey magic.
Yes, indeed. Ran's there. Hello, Ran. Still munching the dates you brought for us. Very lovely they are as well.
Nice.
D and M and B and K and R and S. That's
That's for
Dan and Mick and BV and Catherine and
right.
Rosie and Simon.
Wow, I'm honoured. I'm honoured.
My Page DS and Maiden combo are still unbeatable.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you for Hours of Bliss, one of the best TPS discoveries ever for me.
Oh, wicked. Well,
And he
so glad you like them.
says, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. He says, I'd like some advice on how to diversify my chordal vocabulary from you magnificent gents.
from Magnificent Gent.
If only we had someone
No,
here who
no.
understood.
No,
come on.
no. So, no, because
He says,
you're the guitar player I want to be when I grow up. So,
being better at that feels like a priority for me at the moment. So, diversifying chord vocabulary. Any tips? Apart from put 20 years aside and do 9 hours a day?
Well, I mean, I
Ran.
think the first thing really, like, if you want your playing to be more diverse in any way, or you want new sounds which you don't have at the tips of your fingers or don't come naturally, the first thing is actually you've got to kind of like get them inside of you. So you've got to listen to those sounds, you know? So it depends a little bit on what you're listening to and what you like. And if you listen to a wider range of stuff and maybe some music which has slightly more complex harmonic structure.
give us an example.
Well, like
if someone
some
was-
jazz stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, jazz might not be your cup of tea, but maybe jazz influenced.
Yeah.
You know, like some Robin Ford stuff or
Yeah.
something, or Larry Carlton or John Scofield.
Steely Dan.
Steely Dan, totally. Yeah, yeah. If you're into a more pop flavored jazz influence, Steely Dan, yeah, would be wicked. Yeah. So you got to hear those sounds and then kind of ask what they are.
Yeah.
You know, because you could study chord theory and stuff, but until you actually hear those sounds, they're just not going to come out really.
Any learning is forwards and backwards, isn't it? It's theory and practice, and then neither of them are any good without the other. So you need to be able to understand what it is, and then where you can pin it in something that you've heard before.
Yeah.
But I don't know where you are in your.
That's the thing, yeah.
I don't know where you are in your playing, Ran, but you know, I couldn't confidently. I could confidently tell you major and minor. I might even be able to confidently tell you major 7, minor 7. Once we start getting into the, let's say, basic, most fundamental chord types used in most music, I would struggle. I know what they sound like, and I know when I hear it, I know how to play it, but I couldn't tell you what they are, and I couldn't tell you what the intervals are. And it could be as simple as that, starting really basic, because we can really overlook those basics.
Yeah.
Just to go, well, what is a minor 7?
Yeah.
What is a sus4? What are those? Because that's how you're gonna learn.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on where you're at, you know, if you're already well versed in triads and majors and minors, and then you go the next step, which is sevens, right? Major sevens, minor sevens, and you take your C major scale and you play the chords in C major. So C major, D minor, E minor, F minor, G major, A minor, B diminished, C. That's all the triads in C, and then you add sevens to them, right?
Right.
And you get that chord scale going, the harmonized scale. And if you're familiar with that, do it with nines, C major 9, D minor 9, right? And just experiment with them, and then apply those new chords to some popular progressions like a 2-5-1 or a 1-4-5. And just start experimenting with extensions, I guess.
Yeah.
You know,
Because then you understand the sound
Yeah.
of the extension.
yes,
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so often you're like, I'm doing some gigs at the moment, and not everyone knows all the chords, including me. And you hear it in bar bands all the time where there's a really important extension in a chord, and it really defines the mood of that song at that point. And for whatever reason, somebody hasn't picked it out and they play a straight major or a straight minor. It's like, no.
Yeah.
And I know I appreciate that sounds really basic, but I think, I don't know, most of us don't have the basics nailed.
Yeah.
If the gigs I go to are any indication.
But the thing is, there are people that have had amazing careers that don't have the base. If that's,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's not, it comes down to what you want to do. The only thing that I'm going to put into this is that you can play for 20 years and feel like, I get up in the morning, pick up guitar, and I still look forward every day to get up in the morning and play guitar.
Nice.
What is challenging though is when you want to learn something new, you've got to be prepared to suck.
Yeah. That's right.
Because if I'm just noodling around on my own, I'm just loving it and hearing these big, this lovely chords. I'm like, oh, this is great. It's like, hang on, I don't know this sound, and I go, and I just sound like an idiot.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hang on, but then I know that if I keep working at it and keep listening for it and sort of developing sounds, and one of the things that I did when you came last time, and we were going over some of these changes and things like the dominant chord that sits outside, now when I first started doing that, it's like I sound like an idiot, but now it got to a point where it's just starting to be prepared for it to take some time.
It takes a long time because if you think about it, it has to really, for it to come out, it has to seep into your subconscious, right? It has to be there so that you don't have to think about it.
That's right.
And if you're a blues player or something and you're very familiar with the blues scale and you can solo till the cows come home and it's all good and you can be creative within that framework, then what you could do is start expanding that by adding a couple of notes or a couple of chords.
Yeah.
But keep doing it and over until you can use those without thinking, right? And that's the challenge with learning music and learning theory, is how to get it to that stage where it comes out.
That's why I love playing simple songs.
Yeah.
Because you can play what is ostensibly a simple song and really never nail it right in the band where you're all in the same space and that I'm taking great enjoyment from that at the moment. Just getting the song as right as we can get it in the time available. Nothing fancy, nothing whatever. And that, again, push and pull, isn't it?
Yeah. One small other thing I'd say is, one good approach I think is, even, it doesn't matter what kind of music you're learning, if it's simple or complicated, learn songs. Because when you learn songs, these songs have all this stuff in it, but quite often it's easy to learn the song and then forget about it and not actually ask, well, what happened in that song?
Right.
So every time you learn a song, make the most of it, and if it goes to a different chord, or if it's got a slightly different chord progression, make a mental note of that and ask what that is and how does that fit in with the key you're in, how is it modulating, what's the harmony, and then you've learned something, right? And you do that for every song, you know. So when I learned songs back when I was studying, I'd have to learn how to play the chords, how to play the melody, how to play the arpeggios over each chord, how to play the right scales, how to play a chord melody. Like, you really take that song apart and learn it to the nth degree. Right? And then you've actually learned something there. And if you did that with every song you learn, you'd know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting when I hear you play, though. It's hard to imagine you ever not knowing, ever being a time where you didn't know how to do what you do, because it just seems so a part of you when you play. I can't.
That's just because you haven't heard me play very much,
Well,
right? It's
no.
just we all play what we're used to, right? It's just.
But I guess to get to where you were, it's like I can't imagine it was one epiphanic moment. You must have had loads of moments where it was like discoveries and
it's
then
all incremental.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's all incremental. Yeah.
Are you still studying and
Yeah,
learning?
totally, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one of the nice things about my job, which is making pedals, is I get to test them every day.
Right.
And so what I have to be careful of is not getting lost in that time testing the pedals.
Yeah.
But you know what? If I do get lost in it, it's almost a good sign, because then I know that pedal is doing what it's meant to do.
Right. But so, and just to round this off, when we first met, I'd heard of I've got to give you my gesture as well.
Sure.
But when we first met, it was the original big box
yeah.
version.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine says, you've got to hear this pedal. And I went to the website, and this is before video and everything. It's just a clip.
Yeah, just a clip, yeah.
And I heard you play, and I'm like, forget the pedal. Do you teach? And that's how we first connect. I mean, I obviously bought the pedal.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I bought the pedal trying to, like, hey, here's some money. Please, can I come over? And
you came over to my brother's house in
Guildford.
Guildford.
It very kindly
Yes.
invited me over.
Yes.
A long, long time ago. But, you know, 'cause hearing you play through your stuff, and because the way that you have your the pedals like gain structure, and because your touch is just so beautiful, you can hear what each pedal is doing. And you know, you might have half a dozen different overdrive pedals, and they all have a very specific thing that they're doing that you can hear when you play, as opposed to someone just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's one of the beautiful things about the way that you play, is because, and then you can design a pedal. It's like, what I want to hear harmonically with this pedal is when I dig a little bit in like this, I want it to bloom, or I want it to hit harder.
It's an interesting subject, but you know what? The thing about you guys, one of the things about you guys that I really admire, is your ability to play loud amps with confidence. They've got this dynamic range, and it's not for the faint of heart, right?
Yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about, right? You just plug in and go, and you've got that confidence and authority to play. For me, honestly, I think part of the reason I got stuck in a sort of slightly softer attack is I just didn't have that confidence in like
It's hard to imagine,
being able to
isn't it?
tame the beast, right?
Yeah.
And so but what happens is, if you're like that, if you're unsure of yourself, you back off your attack,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
and then you turn down a little bit on your volume control, and then you discover things in there, right?
I wish I was unsure of
And
myself.
so, for better or worse, you end up kind of having a different kind of style of playing and attack, right?
Sure.
I think it depends on it's so material dependent as well, isn't it?
Completely.
Because
Yeah,
if
of
you're-
course. Yeah.
If you're playing music which enables a bit of leg stretching, as it were, in an environment that's conducive to that, then the ability to do what you just described is much more. It's more enticing to do it, because you've got to think of something different to do, especially when you get around to the third chorus and you've used up all your licks.
Yeah.
Just whack it away at it.
And the
isn't gonna
singer's
work
gone
anymore.
off stage for another beer.
Yeah.
Just take a,
But equally, if you're in the bar band playing simple songs, and I don't mean simple songs, I mean songs that don't have a lot of space in them for experimentation and improvisation, is what I actually mean. Then there's not the opportunity for that. So
Yeah.
it's
So make
so
the most of what
material dependent, isn't
Elliot,
it?
like Elliot Easton, when you hear one of his solos over 4 bars, he's like, I'm going to get everything. I'm going to do they're like in these 4 bars. And you can tell in the 4 bars he knows exactly what he's doing, and he makes the most of that. And so it's, I guess, horses for courses.
But you know what? I played in, like you guys, in cover bands actually for many years, and I think that's what helped me, because I played with my buddy Joe. Shout out to Joe Fernandez, good friend, and we played for years and years, and we play all sorts of cover music, mostly rock and roll based and country, and I had to learn a lot of songs, from simple to more complicated, and I had to learn how to hit the guitar and all that stuff, right? So that, combined with having a softer attack as well, I mean, honestly, he was really good to me, because you're talking about like simple songs and not getting to solo. I got to solo to my heart's content
right.
over all these songs.
Yeah.
And so I probably drove him nuts because I was, playing mixed Lydian scales where I shouldn't be and trying to put in jazz licks over rock and roll songs. But he didn't care. He ate it up because he didn't want to play covers note for note. He was more interested in the creativity. Right?
Yeah. Actually, shout out to our brother Andy Wood. So there's this. Andy does a live stream, every week, and there's this clip that he put out, and it was so amazing. He's like, look, I know a lot of people that, are working really hard on getting their stuff down, and it's like, obviously he's worked incredibly hard. He's like, but at the end of the day, what song are you going to play?
Yeah.
It's just, it all comes back to that. It's if you can do all this stuff, but you don't have a song to play, it doesn't mean anything. All of his stuff, is always about what the music is going to and the songs, and it's really beautiful to hear someone who is that technically proficient actually going, all of this stuff doesn't mean anything unless it's part of music.
Yeah. It serves.
I also think
music.
it's disingenuous.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why would you spend all the time learning it then, if it doesn't mean anything? Because there's a huge you get a lot of self-satisfaction in learning it and being able to do it. And I think it's okay to do it for the sake of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It does mean something, doesn't it? It does mean something to be able to do it.
Yes. But I guess
otherwise the guitar industry wouldn't exist.
Sure. But I guess his point is that it's so much more meaningful, when it is related to something musical, or something, a song, just a song to play over. If you can, so like for example, Mick and I can sit here and play and do that stuff. When I hear
I can't.
Mick play over with a band, and play over a song, it's like, you know how to play music.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's the thing. Right. It's great to be able to do that stuff, but actually to be able to do it playing over music, and make it musical, is magical.
That's the art.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, it is. It's good. It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
Awesome.
Okay, where were we? Where were we? We were talking to Alex241. Alex241.
Hello, Alex241.
Hey, Alex, how are you, buddy? He says, in searching for my first 1x12 cab, a Mesa 212 came up in the same price range. Is there any reason not to buy a 2x12 instead?
Weight.
Size.
Weight.
Weight and size.
Especially the Mesa cab is that the 212 is the open back, closed back scenario. I mean, the Mesa 212s are amazing.
They do loads.
Lots of variants,
They've done loads. The most common one, and what you're probably talking about, is a recto cab, I expect. Is it like quite a compact 212?
Right.
Quite low and wide. That's the most common 212 that you see for sale. But there's also various halfbacks, three-quarter backs, all kinds of things. And unlike a lot of guitar, and unlike a lot of amp companies, Mesa will always make a specific cab for the amp. So the Lone Star cabs were very different from the rectifier cabs. I think the cabs for the Fillmores and the Cali Tweeds are different. So
yeah, it's hard to generalise then.
Yeah, Simon and I were talking about cabs earlier. I don't love the sound of my 112 cab, so I'm going to put it in a head and get a different cab for it. So if you've got experience of playing a certain type of cabinet and you like that and you go towards it, then by all means do that. Yeah, if you've got the space, if it'll fit in your car, your house, and you can carry it around, I'm always a fan of bigger cabs personally.
Yeah, bigger is good, because what you don't want, the trouble with 112s is we grab them because they're convenient and they can sound great, but they tend to often be a little bit small physically. Yeah, and that's the enemy really for me, right? Because as soon as you get small, it looks like a box and it sounds like a box. It sounds boxy, mid-range.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right? So to get that airy openness, I think you need a bit of width and depth to it, or if not, one or the other. You need more volume, right? And it depends if you're talking open and closed, etc. But generally speaking, I've tried in making amps to make good sounding small 112s they just never do it for me. You've got to have something like the size of what are those cabs there?
They are 112s, but they're oversized.
Yeah, that size is good, I think.
Simon's pointing to the custom Zilla cream 112s that you see on the show sometimes.
Yeah,
they are exceptional sounding cabs. But I agree with you. You start going smaller, and that's not to be pejorative about the sound of small cabs, right? Because if you want the sound of a deluxe, it has to be that small box.
Yeah.
And it has to be made out of pine.
But, and the speaker has to be off center.
Yeah. And if you want the sound of a Princeton or a Champ, then that is part of the sound is the small box. But if you're going for the kind of thing that I think collectively we like, which is quite a big sound from a guitar, then a big box works, doesn't it? And you're, again, with no disrespect to other cabinet makers who will claim their cabinets sound massive, it's physics. It's very hard to make a small box sound like a massive box.
I think the deluxe reverb, though, you're mentioning, I think it works really well with that, partly because that circuit has a scoop mid-range.
Right.
So it's got bass and treble.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound boxy.
Yeah, right.
You know, the combination of that.
So you're actually designing for the...
I don't know if it was, but it works.
Yeah,
you know.
And conversely, Tweed Deluxe, actually a lot of that mid-range aggression and what we associate with Tweed amps maybe suits the style of the box for that reason, because the box accentuates
But those boxes aren't that small either, like a Tweed Deluxe, is it?
No, not super small.
No.
Bigger than a 112 Boogie, for example.
Yeah.
See, and then you get to a 112 Boogie, like a Mark III Boogie. How does that sound like it does?
Yeah.
Which is
huge.
just insanity.
But I remember taking the output of the Lazy J and plugging it into a Marshall, the closed back Marshall 2x12, and just going, and that was my gigging rig for 10 Spirits for ages, because it was just all of the, I mean, I love the sound of an amplifier, but there's that mid-range thing that just was taken care of with the closed back 2x12, and it's everything. I was going to ask you, with the 2x12, have you ever run 2 different amps into a single 2x12?
Yeah, I used to do it all the time.
Right.
I used to gig with a 2x12, which had an amp in it, and that powered one speaker, and then I put a head on it to power the other one, and I'd go stereo or wet dry, my poor man's sort of, gigging setup, and it worked quite well. It sometimes you can get funky resonances in the cab, and the 2 amps can kind of not like it, and make some weird noises when you turn up, and so it's a bit hit and miss. But it works for sure.
So we say 212. If you can carry it, if it'll fit physically where you're going to put it, we say 212. Because more is more. Daniel Mincher says, this is for BV for being a total legend. We agree. Thank you, BV.
Yes, thank you, BV.
Daniel Mincher's calling you a legend. He says, ask chat a question. Hope everyone is having a fantastic Monday. Indeed we are. So let's get one from the chat then.
Matt Cambridge says, what about a Kingsley signature 8x12 combo?
Yes. Well, I'd have to get one of my grandkids to carry it. So I'll have to check with Eli and see what he says. He's only 1 right now, so...
Have you ever done anything like that, like a silly experiment?
I have done very silly experiments over the years, but not like an 8x12 or something. I'll tell you one of the best ones, and again, this is with my buddy Joe. I had a 112 combo, the Deluxe 30, and we were playing in a pub in a room attached to it, which was very cold, no heating, and it was in the winter. And I knew that coming up. So I think it was a New Year's gig as well. So what I did is I fashioned a metal tray to fit in around the speaker, and I loaded it with nachos and cheese, right? EL84s, they get really hot, right? And I didn't tell anybody, and I just went to the gig with this, and we started playing and stuff, and the nachos started heating up, and the smell started, and they were like, "What's that smell? What's going on?" And it was cool, but honestly, I think it would really work. But there's 2 problems. One is that room was really cold, so it didn't really melt them to get enough. And also the tubes were on top rather than underneath. Like on an AC30, you can cook hot dogs on those vents, right?
Yeah.
But it was cool, and the guys in the band named it the Naturalator. So that was wicked.
Yeah,
and I ended up selling that amp to somebody, but I've still got the tray at home.
So please let us know your amp cooking experiences. we know various people that will fry an egg on the bonnet of a Land Rover, but I've never heard it in the
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
in the back of an amp before.
Did
you-
Excellent.
Remember when Rush were touring and they had the rotisserie chicken things on stage, and so they'd start cooking these chickens, and they were part of their amps. And then by the end of the gig, these chickens were all cooked, and they'd go out as
wicked.
yeah.
Wicked.
They're
Nice, yeah.
Okay, moving right along. Peter Fox. Hello, Peter. Peter says, I have a problem with my stage performance. I'm an introvert. I always stand in the same spot, barely move, but you do. I think it's important that you enjoy it to the point, to whatever level that enables you to be free. So, is there something you would like to do? Would be my question. Because if standing still and just enjoying playing the music is what you want to do, then do that.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you should put on a show because it's kind of rock and roll, I would personally say that that's maybe not the right thing to do, because that won't feel natural to you.
That's it.
BB saying we've frozen.
Oh.
Can we see anything that means we're frozen, or does it all look okay?
I don't know. So have we actually? Is it just the voices that are?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And it's someone saying, "Oh, we're back. There we go."
Okay. Just keep talking.
Okay. So, and someone that says that the chicken thing, Getty did that because he'd gone direct and needed something to fill the space of his amps. BB says we're back live now. Can Mick check?
It was some disruption in the force.
Okay.
Yeah.
Playing on a farm. We're fine. Okay, refreshed and it's all okay. There we go.
Okay, good. Sorry. What were we talking about? Yeah, so one thing I used to be scared of was the audience.
Yeah.
Obviously, it sounds like an obvious thing to say. Now I engage the audience and I look at them in the eye and I find someone and I look at them, not to be intimidating, but just to have some rapport, because they want you to do well.
Yeah, they're willing you to succeed.
They're willing you to do well.
Yeah.
And they want you to feel, like you're all part of the same moment. And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's okay
totally.
to look at people.
Of course.
So my last bit with this, a very dear friend of ours, Paul Stacey, astonishing musician, but is also an actor.
I didn't know that.
And so he was in 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was the couple that played at their friend's wedding.
Nicola Walker. It was.
Smile with that. That's Paul Stacey.
Yeah.
So, one thing that Paul does, if he's doing a gig, and depending on the gig, he will get in the character of the person that's doing the song. So if he's doing the rock thing, and he's doing a Zeppelin thing or a Cream thing, he'll get into character and stand a certain way and that sort of stuff. And that character is sort of it's a really cool way to look at performance, depending on the gig, of course.
Yeah.
If you're doing original stuff and whatever, but if you're doing some covers, it's okay to take on a different persona, and it's a fun thing to try. I remember we did a Halloween gig, and we had to all come dressed in fancy dress, and I came dressed as the Crow, and I had like all makeup and black goth hair and everything, and it was the funnest gig I'd done in ages, because I didn't have to be me. I could just be an idiot, more of an idiot.
Yeah, that's why fancy dress parties are so cool.
They are so cool.
You don't have to be yourself.
See, all these years later, now I know what I should have done. You guys are giving me some good ideas.
Dressed up as a crow.
It's too little too late, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And there you are.
Never too late, mate.
Yeah, but I think we empathise in a big way, because it is a big deal to stand on stage in front of people.
Yeah.
And without sounding too harsh, you just got to get over yourself, because it's not about you, it's about them.
Yes, that's right.
And there's a beautiful realisation one day when that penny drops, and then you stop worrying about it, and you can just sort of stop giving a crap about all of that stuff. And then what that means is your mind is free to play music.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing.
Pete Thorne expressed it beautifully when he was here.
Yeah.
He was like, if you're worried about making a mistake and getting nervous, he says, then you've forgotten that it's not about you.
That's right.
It's about them.
That's right, yeah.
And then it was like, oh, it was perfect.
But you have to get in that zone, though.
Completely,
Sometimes,
yeah,
right?
completely.
You go to the gig and, you're thinking of all these different things and there's the audience, and you need to somehow get in that space where you can create music.
I always take a minute before, just from, quite often when you get to a show, as you guys will know and as you may know, there's a lot of mucking about to do, especially if you're on a bill with lots of bands. But even then, there's setting up to do, there's your rig, there's the PA, there's sound check, there's all of that. I will always be a couple minutes late on stage, if necessary, to just go somewhere for a couple of minutes and breathe. And do nothing else but breathe. And it sounds really sounds really daft and dumb. But just get some breath into your chest. Because what happens is when you've got tension, when you're nervous, two things happen. Well, lots of things happen, but two things happen. Your muscles tense, and you start breathing light, and you breathe up here.
Yeah.
And the act of actively breathing, just for a minute or so, it only needs to be. In some cases, it only needs to be 3 or 4 breaths. You breathe in deeply, and out again slowly. That will get some air into you, get the oxygen into you, and it will also relax your muscles in a big way. And it's so worth it.
Yeah.
Good advice. Yeah.
So worth it.
Yeah.
Dave Rustad says, the audience also wants your guitar to be louder, I promise. So yes, mate. That's brilliant.
Yeah. But maybe not the club owner, and sometimes not the sound man.
That's okay.
Shout out to the sound people on Saturday night. 100 watt Marshall, 50 watt 2 watt, loud as pigs. Didn't bat an eyelid.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
It still exists, people. I think he didn't bat an eyelid because he didn't give a shit. But he didn't. There was no moaning.
Yeah, brilliant.
Nice.
And it sounded good. I thought it sounded good.
Nice.
Okay, Plink Stringly. I hope you've got a band, Plink Stringly and the Twangers or something like that. That's perfect.
Stringly and the Twangers.
Anyway, Plink Stringly says, howdy to 3-leg ends. Do you need to adjust your playing when switching guitars with different scale lengths? I seem to struggle going from my Tele or Jazzmaster to an ES225. Strangely, I don't on my Jag. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. When I first got this guitar and going between this and the Tele and the Jag, and they're all a bit, but you soon with this guitar, I just go this way a bit.
Yeah.
And you get used to it.
That's not scale length though, that's position. That's
But the
position,
scale length in
physical
this
position of the guitar.
Well,
yeah,
this
next
longer,
bit out,
shorter,
out here further,
Yeah, but
right?
the
In
reason-
minute.
No, look, the reason you've got to do that is because the guitar is that way.
That's right.
Yeah. Whereas if it's a PRS or a Les Paul,
That's right.
it's back
It's that
here.
way. That's
Yeah,
right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's partly scale length,
Okay,
and it's more about physical position.
right.
What
Yeah.
about when on a strap? Do they sit in the same place then?
No,
If you're stood
very
up.
different. Because the strap is here
Yeah.
on this one. So this leans forward. I can't, even if I'm on the Tele, I can sort of look over and see what's going on.
Yeah.
You can't do that on this.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's the reason I asked Dan that question was because it might not be the scale length that's causing the difference. It might be the physical position of the guitar on your body, which just for shits and giggles, get the Jag and your did you say Tele? What did you say? Yeah, so get your Tele and your Jaguar, put them on and see where your hands fall. Then get the ES225 and see where your hands fall. It could be as much to do with that. Maybe.
Could well be, yeah.
You switch between Gibsons and Fenders?
Yeah, that's right. My main guitar's a Strats and a 335 and a Les Paul, but now a PRS as well. But
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, it used to be that I used to be super picky about that stuff. And I think that if you grow up playing a certain guitar and that's your main style of guitar, you get attached to it and it's very hard then to pick up another brand and do it. And, I didn't like skinny necks. I wanted big fat necks or something, and you don't want a certain width of the nut and all this, and you get anal about it, And then after a while, you just start playing guitars for what they are, and you adjust to the guitar. So you can't, I guess what I'm saying is you can't expect every guitar to be the same and for you to play exactly the same on it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might mean it's a little harder or a little easier, but it might bring something else to the table.
Yeah, that's
So
why we
you
play
embrace
different
that.
guitars.
You
Yeah,
embrace
that's
that,
right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
once it's in there as a brainworm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
then you can't get it out,
Yeah.
can you?
No,
Dan,
that's
right.
actually, Dan's point about the SG, where the strap button is also incredibly relevant. I don't know where the strap button is on a 225, but it might be if you're using the same strap and your telly sits there. It might be that your Gibson is actually sitting there, depending on where the strap button is. So it could be height and position as much as scale length. Sorry.
No, yeah, I was saying 335 has got the strap button here as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's mine, and like yours, like this guitar. Of course, that's more probably neck heavy, maybe. I don't know because
No, it's not neck heavy, but it does. It just when it sits like this when it's on.
I know what you mean, but I go between 335 and a Strat, and I don't notice any. Maybe I. Do you wear your strap high or low?
Pretty low.
Yeah,
Lower.
there you go. You're rock and roll. You see. I just want to be comfy, so I'll just do the height I want. And so maybe that helps a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Can't play jazz chords like that.
I just called
Who wants to?
To say I love you.
But look. The point I'm trying to make is, if the strap button is there,
Yeah.
the guitar sits there. If
That's
it's
right.
there, it sits there. It's higher.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that
of
might
course.
be it. Because it's a bit higher, maybe it can sit into your...
But you have different straps on different guitars, is what
Yes,
you do.
yeah, I guess so. I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so.
I have one for my 335 and a different one set to a different height for the Strat.
Yeah.
Jeff McElwain's on. G'day, buddy.
Hey Jeff, how are you, buddy? Yeah, so try that. And the final thing to say about, well, not the final thing. One more thing to say about Gibsons is they tend to have neck pitch. So
Yeah.
Fenders tend to be, from here to here parallel,
That's right.
flat.
Yes.
So the neck's kind of over there.
Yeah.
And if you switch to a Gibson, the neck's going to
It's
be
like
back
that.
here a bit more because the strings do
Yeah,
that
that's
up
right.
to the bridge and that down to the nut.
Yeah.
So I think it can be as much about physical position as it is scale length.
Sure. Yeah.
Although Saturday night's gig was I played Gibson guitar, played my Collings and Gibson, so Gibson scale length guitars in E flat, and I struggled with that. I really struggled with that.
Really?
Yeah, because the tension was just,
Right.
even went up a string gauge, and it was,
Too floppy.
I took it as a sign of progression in my hearing, because I made quite a lot of semitone mistakes,
Oh yeah.
because I know that note is that note,
Yeah.
and I play that note, and it's like, oh shit, it's not that note.
Yeah.
As to what it should sound like out of the guitar. And all right, I did make some mistakes as well, but yeah, I struggled with that because it was too floppy
Yeah. Yeah.
and over bending and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Mistakes is a whole other interesting conversation. It's like you can rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, but when you get to playing live, sometimes it's like you've never rehearsed before. So one little thing that's different,
well, everything sounds different.
it sounds different. It's like, and it just throws you. It's like, okay, does that mean that you don't actually really know the stuff when you make a mistake and it throws you and it's so hard to get back on track? That's one of the things. If you're playing live a lot and you get used to knowing the material in that environment, I just find that it comes to a point where it's pointless rehearsing more,
Yeah. Oh,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
as soon as you get to the stage, it's like you just got to go out and play it, and get
for sure.
used to it, playing it in that environment, because it's
Yeah.
so different.
And some familiarity comes, then it's some muscle memory comes
Yeah.
for sure,
Yeah.
which is great. It's one of the things I'm not enjoying about all the different bands at the moment is you do all that work for one gig
Yeah.
and no one gets a chance to gel and
Yeah,
sit.
right.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
like,
Yeah,
it would be great to do
that's
7
tough.
or 8
Yeah,
of these,
no,
because
yeah.
by gig
You need
8
to.
we'd be in the game.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
But
Well, when we
No,
did the
it's
TPS band, it's like, the first night was I mean, it's always fun, but definitely as the second night, the third night, and you're sitting in just a little bit more of a swagger because everyone just
Yeah.
feels a bit more comfortable, and
well, there's less mental impediment, isn't there? Because you don't have to think anymore, and the muscle memory
Yeah.
saves you a bit, maybe.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
don't know. Hope that helps. Plink gives you some things to think about. Daniel Thornton, hello Daniel, good to hear from you, buddy. He says, hello gents, I normally play TPS wet dry with a Princeton and AC15.
He's a man after my own heart.
I recently inherited a super reverb. Knowing you've had one at the studio for ages helped me imagine ways I could use that in a wet-dry setup.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's really tricky because our super sounds amazing loud.
Right.
When it's turned up, it's just spectacular. But there's a point when it gets below, it's really hard work.
Really hard work, yeah. And that's the issue. So if you're using an AC15 and a Princeton, it's going to significantly overpower both, depending on how you have it all set, of course. And the moment where all those amps go into overdrive is quite different. So, however, there's no reason you couldn't set it up as the kind of big, bold,
That's right.
high headroom amp to make sure all your reverbs and everything sound lovely and punch through the mid-range. So instead of, like, as you know, the TPS way of doing things is to have both amps kind of similar, but maybe you could adopt the Phil X approach where one amp's doing your big, bold, and the smaller amp is now doing the mid-range punch. And that's a lovely way to do it. So instead of sort of two things doing ostensibly the same thing in different ways, one wet, what you're now doing is two very different jobs with the amps, but they still meld into a dual mono whole.
Yeah.
Do you ever use two amps? I mean, you said you used to. Yeah.
I always, at home and stuff, and when I'm testing stuff, I've always got two amps on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's addictive,
This is
isn't
why
it?
we like you so much.
Yeah. One of the reasons.
We align on so many things. But the 2-amp thing is, I remember when I first discovered it, and it was just opened up a whole world because you were no longer. So like, for example, if I'm just using the AC30, the AC30 has such a character.
Yes.
It stamps AC30 on every single thing you play. You know what I mean? Which is cool.
Yeah.
But pair it with anything else, and suddenly there's a unique character to the sound that's coming out.
Yes.
And it's almost, as long as there's no latency on one, you can almost pair anything, including solid state amps.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and
That's very true, because in fact, we were talking about small speaker cabinets and sounding boxy. When I go to a gig, the dilemma is, I don't want to take a small boxy amp, but there's not much room and I don't want to be a hassle. So I've got this little 110 combo I made.
Yep.
And I'll take that with another bigger amp, and I don't notice the boxiness of the little
There you
110,
go.
Because it's doing
It sounds big.
part of the whole, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
the way they couple together.
Yeah,
and just,
it's providing
I
some
love that.
mid-range,
Yep.
and then the bigger amps providing the bottom and the top, you know.
I'm using a Princeton and my old. Have you seen my? Did I bring it in? It's a 1959 AC10 twin. Right.
Wow.
That and the Princeton together.
Yes.
Either one of them on their own
Yeah.
is like. I mean, the
Brilliant,
Princeton on its own sounds great, but either one of them on their own, sounds good. You put them together.
Yeah.
It's huge.
That's right. Yeah.
Not too loud. I'm not
Yes,
doing the
no.
100-watt Marshall
No, yeah,
thing,
yeah.
but for what we're doing with keys and stuff,
Yeah.
it's appropriate.
Perfect. Yeah.
But the coupling of them together,
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful thing. But I've also recently started playing with the coupling of a 10-inch and a 12-inch.
Oh yeah.
what
I find with if you've got two amps with the two 12-inch speakers, and they've got similar amounts of bottom end, when they come together, it can be a bit rumble in the jungle.
That's right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But when you put a 10 and a 12 together, they don't couple in the same way.
Yes.
And so you just get the best of the summing of them both.
Yeah. I made an amp with a 12 and an 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, it actually wasn't my idea. It's actually copied after a Gibson GA50, Jim Hall's jazz amp.
Oh.
I got commissioned to make an amp for a local jazz player. He's a great player, Bill Coon, world class. And so he wanted that. He used to study with Jim Hall. And
my
he loved Jim
goodness.
Hall's old GA50. And he said, can you make me something like that? And I went, well, I can make you something, based on that. And so we made one with a 12, both Alnico and an 8. And of course, it was for jazz. So,
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, it worked really well. On its own, if you listen to 12, it was rich and full and lots of mids. And when you added the 8, it just gave it more detail and sparkle. So the two together was kind of nice, yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay, it's very cool. Renan Santos in the regular chat. Renan Santos says, question for Simon, do you recommend experimenting with different tubes in your pedals? or brands, or even different compatible models. For example, like switching out an AX7 for an AT7 or something like that.
Yeah, totally. Most of the pedals that we make are built around 12AX7s. Some of them use an EF86. Occasional a 12A T7 or a Y7 I might use. But in general, if you have, say, a Page or a Harlot or something, you can change those out. So in a Harlot, there's actually a bunch of users, we're talking about it online, and they take the 12AX out and they put a 12AU in it, a specific one. I think it's a clear top RCA or something. And that one, it lowers the gain of the pedal a lot, but makes it a great low gain pedal.
Wow.
So definitely you can try any of the 12A based variants. Generally, as far as the new production, I put new production in all our stuff because I don't have access to a bunch of NOS stuff. You just can't be consistent with that.
Of course.
So the new production stuff, we use a variety of stuff, and depending on the particular product, it might be something else. So I'll use JJ ECC 83s, or I use the JJ E83cc, which is a different one, and ECC 803S, which is a long plate one, in preamps a lot. I use the Tongue Sol reissue 12AX7 in the Harlots. It's got a bit more top end aggression. So you can experiment with all those, and they all bring something different to your table. And definitely, if you want to go down the NOS rabbit hole, go for it.
Yeah,
There's
right.
lots of stuff in there. And just as they work great in amps to change their character, same applies to the pedals.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Glenn Michael Thompson says, Bill Kuhn was my guitar teacher at
Oh,
Concordia
nice.
University in Montreal.
No way.
Wow.
Bill Kuhn's a fantastic guitar player and a lovely guy. The only thing I should add on to that story, though, however, it's not quite, just in all honesty, he ended up wanting to sell that amp because he's a jazz guy and he wants an amp this size now.
Right.
So he came to a gig. I actually did a couple of gigs with him, and it was a jazz gig, and he kindly agreed to come and play with me, which was awesome. And he showed up with this little tiniest little thing and nothing else in his jazz box, and he plugged into it and blew everybody away, right? Because it really didn't matter.
Yeah,
you know?
okay.
But he's a fantastic musician. Yeah.
Don't tell anyone the gear doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're saving that up for the last
It was solid
show.
state as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Little tiny
Well,
thing.
Of course it was. Yeah.
Because it's all about the player. It's all
Yeah,
about
yeah,
music,
yeah.
you know.
But do you remember the old grey Roland cubes?
Yeah.
That
of
everyone,
course,
all the jazz
yeah.
guys are using them forever.
Yes.
And the beautiful reverb in them.
Mm.
And I remember my keyboard player friend of mine had one, and I had my rack, and I had the old JMP 1
Yeah.
and some other
Yeah.
nonsense, and just plugging that into that amplifier, because it was so clean and detailed.
Yes.
It's what a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I remember those well from when I used to live in Belgium in the 80s, and people had them, and my brother had one, and they were very common, but I wasn't in the know enough back then to really, know what that was all about.
Yeah.
But I know they were popular back then, and they were all over the place there, and they were well liked by many people. But
Yeah.
I can't remember them well enough how they actually sound though now.
Yeah. I guess like a small version of a JC something,
Yeah, yeah.
Not sure. Polytone was the thing for the pro jazz players as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Polytone. Yeah.
And then there was another brand which I'm desperately trying to bring to mind, which came around, I want to say might have been the 90s, but might have been the 2000s.
Henriksen or something.
Really tiny and quite modern
Not
styling.
GK?
Not
Gallien
Gallien
Kruger?
Kruger's a great
Not-
shout, but no, it's more modern than that.
Isn't Henriksen well liked by
Could be.
by jazz players?
Someone will tell me what I'm thinking of in a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
And Anyway, yeah. I suppose when it comes to jazz guitar, you're not looking to reproduce endless bottom end.
No, especially with an arch top, right? Because
Yeah.
they're kind of tricky to amplify sometimes. You get this boominess and they want to feed back, and so you have to be careful with the
And
bottom end.
It would be a cliche to say that all jazz tones are woolly, because they're really not.
No.
But at the same time, you don't need loads and loads and loads of high-end sparkle. So
That's right.
I think it is, compared to a traditional rock electric guitar sound, it's a very different game
It
EQ
is.
wise.
It is, but the classic recordings like the old West Montgomery stuff, it was old Fender amps,
Yeah.
old Fender tube
Yeah.
amps, right? Like super reverbs, and I don't know what else, right?
And
I'm
you
not
can
sure.
hear him feeding back in certain things, and it just sounds So cool.
The old
is.
George Benson stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, I think tube amps work great for jazz. But yeah, you just got to watch that bottom end and get a nice warm sounding amp.
It is also said, and I don't know how true it is, but certainly on more modern jazz recordings, they'll mic
The guitar.
here as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was what happened in Wes's day or for George Benson stuff.
I think they had like a mic to put over the whole band.
Yeah,
and, like,
yeah.
put it in the right position.
But there's no doubt you can hear some of the wind on some of the strings.
Yeah,
completely.
absolutely.
Yeah, which you wouldn't hear through a pickup so much.
Yeah, but if there's a room mic or something and the band's very dynamic, you know,
Yeah,
like
you're getting it that way.
you know, if you watch Bill Kuhn play, I've seen him play with another great Vancouver jazz player a few times called Oliver Gannon, who's a legend, and they do duos. And when it's time to play rhythm, the volume almost goes off.
Wow.
And it's just like ching, 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 and you hear all the acoustic guitar and you hear that pick attack there.
Yeah.
And on a good recording, hopefully that comes through, right?
Amazing.
Yeah. Cozzy is saying, is it AER? No, it's not, but they do great compact clean amps too.
yeah.
Quilter, same. Glenn
Quilter.
Michael Thompson.
Yeah.
Heart Key, says Victor Gustafsson. No, none of those. I'll remember in a minute. Okay, so next in will be Scott Curry. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Always good to hear from you, buddy. He says, great show Friday. I love playing my Minstrel into my Dr. Z amps, especially my Karma Gear. Any chance you will feature the Karma Gear again? The Minstrel is the best OD in my opinion. It is so versatile.
Oh, great. Well, glad you like it. That's fantastic, yeah.
We will play the, because it sort of got a bit of short shrift in Friday's show, the Karma Gear. We sort of had it purely as an alternative to the Marshall that you'd been hearing. So we put it up because it was a lower power amp. So yeah, we should play the Karma Gear before it goes back. Yeah, because it's been lent to us. Yes, it's been lent to us. So before it goes back, we will get into it a bit more and put it on a more appropriate speaker. I think I'm going to say that it's a Dr. Z Karma.
I'm trying to remember what that circuit's based off. I know it's got something different going on. I can't remember.
I think it's predominantly Voxy. EL84's 2 knobs. And it's got the tone is a tone cut.
Okay.
So it's more trebly in the left.
Something about it though that's not Vox. I don't know what it is.
okay,
Maybe it's the
could be
preamp or something.
I think it
might
had
be.
to do with
remember
Brad
what it is.
Paisley. So we'll stick that into some Alnicos and
Yes.
and have a go with that. I think the dog might need a wee, so I might just go and do that in a sec. Yeah, thank you, Scott. Thanks for your generosity, buddy. And to everyone who's super chatting, thank you. We greatly appreciate it. Rosie's joined the chat. What you got to say for yourself, Rosie? Good girl.
This is a sensible size for a dog.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. We always
Simon,
get like labs.
how
and
do you remember
labs aren't
all of
huge,
the
but they're big
changes?
enough, you know, and they get approaching 100 pounds and you're walking them both, you know. I get pulled like this all the time, you know, and after I've had a few occasions walking around the block and I literally go flying, you know, on the tarmac.
Oh, Scott Curry says it's a Hammond reverb circuit. It's actually an organ amp, the gear. Oh.
Well, thank you. It's a Hammond reverb circuit for the preamp.
It's actually an organ amp.
It's an organ amp. Okay.
There you go.
Thank
yes, the 40 Watt podcast says the Karman gear was based on a Hammond organ amp.
Okay.
There you go.
Cool.
Okay, I'm going to take the dog for a wee. You guys can answer this question from Anthony Calderisi. Anthony, hi, thank you for the question. He says, mates, greetings from Chicago.
Sweet home.
My kind of town. Is that Chicago?
Oh, yeah.
Is it? I bought my first vintage Vox AC10 Twin from 1965.
Oh, well done.
Super chewy. Oh, I see what's going on there. Super chewy from the EF86. Dan, could you tell us more about your Fawn AC10?
Yeah.
Pros and cons for live use. I'm planning to use mine on stage ASAP. Right, Rosie, let's go for wheelies.
So, I've got it. Is it in the foyer there, Mick, or did I not bring it in?
It's not in the foyer.
Oh, okay, no, so it's in the car. Right. There's a guy I was doing some work with who's building some cases for us way back in the day.
Yeah.
And he had this little shed out in the middle of nowhere where he'd built all these cases. And it was a bit of it was stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Like my house.
Yeah, but it's not like in the middle of the not the woods, but it was sort of very rural.
Yeah.
And things under tarps and stuff. And
Yeah.
I just got into my Vox kick.
Yeah.
And I was desperate to get an old AC30.
Yeah.
Anyway, I saw this was tarp, and I saw under this old a bit of the. I don't know what on earth is that.
No way.
And he goes, "Oh yeah, I've forgotten about that," and he pulls it out, and it's this old AC10 twin. Now the grill cloth is ripped to bits. The speakers were shredded.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a mess. But he knew what he had. He knew it was worth some money, and so I took a gamble on it because I couldn't hear it because the speakers were dead.
Yeah.
And anyway, replaced the speakers. I got these Weber Alnico Signature Series 10-inch speakers.
Yeah.
Put it in, and just turned it up, and I was so happy.
Yeah.
Now, the beautiful thing about that amplifier, I used that for years when I was pairing with the AC30 or with an AC50.
Yes, yes.
And it was the amp of the pair that gave in a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
of course, yeah.
The cool thing about that amplifier is, so 1959, it's got the factory EF86 on the vibrato side.
Yeah.
But it's got this thing where if you turn the volume up, but there's also, it's with the speed on 0 and you turn the depth up, it just gives it a bit more push.
Oh, nice.
It's fascinating.
Nice.
I remember 20 years ago at a guitar show, and Matt Schofield came in and he heard the amp and he plugged into it and he just turned it up and let rip. And he was he said that amp and an amp by Dr. Scientist.
Dr. Z?
No,
Mad
Professor. Mad Professor.
Yeah.
He said that amp and the Mad Professor amp, he said the best amps at this show.
Wow.
And so it's an amplifier that I'd happily plug into at home at low volume. But pairing that amplifier, I can pair that with anything.
It probably doesn't have enough headroom on its own, I guess, for most of your
No,
gear.
that's right. But because it's a 10-watt thing. And it's
Is
different.
it actually 10 watts?
Well, I don't know because he originally thought it was an AC15 with a 210. So I don't...
Yeah.
I'm assuming, because it does feel quieter than AC15s that I've played.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it is low, but it's still two EL84s. I don't know about the Apple transformer or the power transformer and what's going on in it.
The AC10 is one that's eluded me. I've had various AC30s over the years, and I still have a couple. And I've had a couple of AC15s pass through, like vintage ones, but I haven't kept any. But the AC10, they've never seemed to come up. You know who uses an AC10 all the time? Are you familiar with the Doug and Pat show?
Yes.
Yeah. That's their go-to amp, right?
Really? Oh, fantastic.
Like when you see
they're great,
Doug
those guys.
playing.
Yeah.
Is it Doug? Doug's the guitar, the guy who plays most,
right?
Is it? Yeah. That's not. I think it's a particular one. It's a head.
Right? Oh,
it's an AC10 head.
Right.
And he's just plug in and go, right?
Yeah.
But they're wonderful, right? It's just I love that show and watching them, and it's that. But that amp sounds awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's exactly what you have, and again, I'm presuming you'll send it. So probably not setting yours
Well, it's. I mean, I have it on 5, which is with what's going into it. It's pretty. It won't go any louder than that.
Yeah.
But there's still.
But
enough.
it's not totally saturated.
No, not at all.
There's a little
not
bit
by
of headroom
a long
there still.
way.
Yeah,
not by a long way.
exactly.
But once we've done, I'll pull that out and show you because it's so old and has been left out in the sort of the elements.
Yeah.
And the cabinet is just so resonant and it's an amazing thing. Yeah, I love it.
Wow.
But I haven't fixed anything. I've taken the ripped cloth in the front and I've just sewn it. And so it looks like it's scarred and stuff. And it's just really cool.
Yeah. Nice.
Frankenvox.
Nice.
It's great.
Yeah. Scent of a wheelchair pillow. Scent of a wheelchair pillow says, favourite TPS guest ever.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well,
That's
thank
you,
you so
Simon.
much. It's very kind. Unwarranted.
I think Simon's already answered this question, but he'll summarise it again briefly. He says, on one of your recent videos, looked you had a like you had a reverb pedal prototype.
Yeah, I have a reverb pedal prototype. It's been in the works for a few years, I'm embarrassed to say. Like many things in my life, I have good intentions and then life happens, you know. So it's still on my board. I still use it every day. It's just a spring reverb driven by a couple of tubes. The tank, though, is separate and goes under the pedal board. It's not really convenient that way, I think, for most players. So I'm a bit of a dilemma as to how to develop that product because I didn't want to make a massive one. Right?
Especially if power supplies are going underneath the board as well.
Yeah, how do you get with noise?
Power supply is tricky.
Yeah.
The noise isn't too bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, it might vary depend on where that reverb tank goes exactly in relation to other gain pedals and stuff like that. If you put it towards the end where your delays and reverbs are, it's generally okay. Power supply, it's hungry, right?
Yeah.
So this thing wants like an amp.
Yep.
Right,
At
12
9
volts,
or 12.
12 volts and an amp.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing.
Oh yeah.
If you want to drive reverb tanks hard, you need a tube that can, you know, that can deliver some current.
Yeah, sure.
And so that's a dilemma too. It sounds really good as it is, but I'm just nailing certain things, trying to deal in my head with how am I going to deal with like a hungry power supply. Well, your power supply will do it.
It will do it.
Yeah. Yours is probably one of the only ones that will do it. And how to do the reverb tank thing, because I've tried the tiny reverb tanks, and I know some people use them successfully, but I can't.
See, I like a small box spring reverb, but I mean, if
but
you
you're
think,
not talking this.
No,
Sorry.
I'm talking Space Echoes. And that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
And
no,
they're
that's
still,
what I'm using too.
Yeah. My favourite one is the Carl Martin Headroom.
Yes.
But it's still
That's a big
box.
pedal though. You see, I
Still
could
a
do
big
that.
pedal.
Still a big unit.
It's still a big unit. But one thing that we do, where's the what's it called? The
Surfy Bear?
The Surfy Bear.
Yeah, Surfy Bear.
But we use the pedal as a pedal board.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
So we put pedals on it.
If you don't mind the big splash sound going off
Every
from
time you
to
kick a
time,
pedal on.
that would be one
There
way
you
to
go.
do it. You know.
Look, it has Velcro on it where the pedals.
Perfect. Yeah.
So this, for those of you who don't know, this is a reverb pedal,
It's unreal.
and
Yeah.
check out the Velcro.
Yeah. And how did that work in practice?
It's great.
Yeah, well,
It's
there you
actually
go.
not too bad.
Well, maybe that's something.
as long as you don't have big kajunk.
But here's what we need to do, Dan. Now I've got an idea. Now that you're making pedal boards,
Yes.
we need to do a collaboration. It needs to be built into the pedal board,
Done.
right? We'll
Done.
make a pedal board
With
which
the
has spring reverb
tank
built
it.
in.
Right. We can totally do that.
And that way, you know, it doesn't have to take up the top real estate
That-
and everything. You don't have to put
Done.
pedals on it.
Done.
We should
That's
work
great.
on that.
Okay.
There you go.
Brilliant.
There you go.
Can I ask a more prosaic question?
Yes.
Are we doing Stonehenge? No. Why not? Why can't you just have the reverb in the amp?
Well, you know, that's a bit like, you know, I had a couple of friends come over the other day and they were kind of shocked by all the pedals everywhere because I hadn't been there for a few years. A good bass player friend of mine, Shane. And I was explaining how all this stuff, what some of the pedals do and stuff, and all these different ways of getting gain and volume and stuff. And at the end of the day, he was like, well, can't you just use the volume on your amp? And you don't need all this. And I just said, get out! You know?
So it's a different sound would be one reason, but also, I mean, Dan doesn't want a spring reverb in his matchless because it makes the amp sound worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. Well, interesting to me. I kept bugging Phil Jamison at Matchless forever to make me a DC30 with the spring reverb in it. So, you know, playing with Dave Gregory for ages, who with his old HC30. I just love the sound of it so much, but I'm like, I'm a massive spring reverb fan. And so Phil eventually ended up doing it, and like the first one he ever made, and it sounded great. But then I took it to rehearsal and put it next to Dave's old amp, and it's like something about that reverb circuit. It's really hard to do because so much of the sound of that amplifier is the EF86 hitting the phase inverter.
Exactly. Yeah, it's how to marry the reverb circuitry into the existing preamp.
Yeah.
Like in between the preamp and the power amp or something.
Yeah.
But if it's an external device, you really don't have that problem, do you? Because it goes in front. Just like the old Fender reverb heads units. So that's the approach that I would say. And if it's just like we use digital reverbs and what have you and spring reverbs and we just put them in front, right?
Yep.
It doesn't work for every scenario because obviously if your amp's turned up a certain amount and it's dirty, then you've got the age-old problem of reverb before gain,
Yeah.
which might not be the best scenario always. But as long as you're running amps the way you do, where there's still headroom,
Yeah.
it works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
completely.
Dan and I both quite like when the amp starts to break a bit, and that.
That's the magic zone
That
with
is
reverb.
magic.
Yeah, I think
With
so
spring
too.
reverb too.
Yeah,
You can get the spring
completely.
reverb to just start to kind of go, but
Yeah.
not be out of control.
Yeah.
That's the magic zone for spring reverb for
Which
me,
I
yeah.
think is the kind of thing a lot of people will find very hard to get their head around, because you've been told for years and years and years that you must put your time-based effects in the loop so that there's no, so that they come after the preamp. But yeah, man, listen to all the classic recordings.
Yeah. Well, I remember doing the rig for Stephen Wilson and with his Bad Cat, cranked, and I'm like, do you want to put your reverb? He goes, no, straight in the front, and then he'd go, and he just loves that
Yeah.
sound, and it's like, when we filmed with him, it's like a lot of people wouldn't like that. It's just I adore that
Yeah, yeah.
It's
because
got
there's
some
so
life
much
to it.
character.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You're
But
not
that's more of an
taking-
effect, though.
Completely.
Right, yeah.
But a lot happens when you take that preamp sound and send it out into a bunch of stuff that,
Absolutely.
and then go back in. It's like,
Just ways. I mean, you can do parallel mixes and stuff.
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
but-
you can run the reverb on the other side, right? You can have your amp, and you can come out of the amp like post amp, like line
Yeah,
out
yeah.
into your reverb, which is what I do at home, right? You come out of the amp, which is a little bit driven, and it drives some effects, which then drive a more powerful amplifier.
Right.
So it's a wet dry,
Yeah.
but the split's happening later, right? And that way you can add reverb to anything you want and keep it in control. Yeah.
Akin to how it's done in the studio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And Robin and Larry both did
Yes,
that,
of
didn't they,
course,
for a
yeah,
minute,
yeah.
didn't they?
Yeah,
Using
absolutely.
full range for,
That's
the,
right.
for the wet effects.
Yes,
It's
yes.
super interesting.
you're tapping off the speaker
Yes.
output. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Lee Brimble. Hello, Lee. Good to hear from you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. He says, with the sad news regarding PMT, did you hear about PMT? Big UK retailer, 15 stores.
No,
Went
sorry.
pop this week.
Oh, no.
Yeah, one of the big ones. So,
Yeah.
What do you see or feel about the future of retail? I still love a physical shop, but how do they survive?
It's tricky. The times they are changing. Oh, so when I was in London, I went into Guitar in
Epsom?
Islington. Islington. Yeah, there. And I walked in. It was busy. Staff looking after customers, and it was nice. And they've got an online thing that's good, and they've got their physical stores, which are not that it feels like a luxury at this stage, but it's definitely something that they want to be able to service customers that want to come in and look at the higher end guitars and actually play them before they buy them.
Yeah.
I think that works great, but they've also got a really great online presence. Andertons is another
Well, that's
great
like I was
example.
going to say. It's like Andertons.
They've got
yeah.
they do their online offering is fantastic, but when you go into the store, it's a different experience, and they make it really special. Like those guys in store, they know their stuff,
Yes.
and they're so attentive, and they really want to make sure you have the best experience. And I think being able to marry those two is great. And if you go on, we have people coming over for experience days from all over the world, and one of the things they want to do is they want to go to Andertons just to see it.
Yeah.
And if you can cultivate that sort of a thing with a
Yes.
retailer,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
But you need something like that. The brick and mortar thing it's a challenge. It's a challenge when you can go onto Amazon
I know.
you know.
Yeah.
and one of the heartbreaking things is people will go in store,
Yeah.
find something they
I
like,
know.
and then leave,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
it's like
I know that's reality.
There's a
isn't it,
couple of
today?
issues with all of that. There's the macro issue and there's the specific issue as it relates to PMT. So anyone that works at PMT who's lost their job or who finds themselves at a crossroads right now, our heart goes out to you guys, because that's tough when that happens. However, the word from anyone I've spoken to says that one of the great issues with PMT was they were too slow to the online game.
right, okay,
or at least didn't prioritize it early enough to get the march. And then you add to that the fact that Andertons in particular were so early in on the online marketing with the YouTube channel, by doing all that, by pushing all of that. So that's the specifics. That's part of the specifics of it. You know, the business just isn't geared. You've got 15 stores and an online business that's not really geared up for it. Anderton's one store.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Online business that really is geared up for it. And I don't mean to draw a direct comparison, but that's how it is. So there may be individual things in the business that mean that it's not quite fit enough to survive when things get tough. Secondly, there's a macroeconomic picture going on, which is Amazon being a great example. Amazon, for better, worse, or whatever, the fact is Amazon have gouged the heart out of all medium-sized retail.
Yep. Regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
We all use Amazon. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying it as a point of fact.
Yeah.
In order to survive as a retailer now, you've got to be small and specialist and have a destination that people want to come to you. John Peach, Andertons, Guitar Village, these things exist.
Yep, Coda.
Yeah. Look in the States, like Walt Grace, for God's sake. EC Guitars. Now, it might be that they have specialism in vintage instruments, which is a different game. But, you know, they are destinations and they have a USP.
Carter and Zach and Nashville.
Norm's,
and,
Norm's Guitars.
Yeah.
And you have a USP.
Yeah.
And then at the other end, you've got the giants. And in our case, in the UK, that's Guitar, Gear for Music, and Andertons currently. And I'm sorry if I've missed anyone out. If you fall between those stools, good luck to you.
Yeah.
Because you cannot compete with the big retailers on volume, and you cannot compete with the little guys on experience. So I think retail in general, whether it be MI retail, whether it be clothing, you know, whatever, facing that basic macroeconomic picture, you got to have a place people want to come if you want bricks and mortar.
Completely.
But you will struggle to survive bricks and mortar only. You need an online. You need an online offering anyway. And that sounds crazy to be talking 25 years after the fact. And it's not that. It's a similar situation happened when mail order became a thing. So back in the day before mail order, so you know where you would see a catalogue and buy something mail order in the UK. Obviously, it's been established in the US for a long, long time. But I remember when stuff like Flying Pig and some of the big mail order UK companies came along, there was all the same hubris about that, and all the people who didn't have their mail order business set up. So the technology changes, doesn't it? And it's very sad in the first instance for the people involved in that company, but it's also sad that in some towns now it's hard to walk into a guitar shop and see a great guitar.
Yeah.
That feels like a loss. I spoke to Lee about it. He might gain business wise out of it, but he's really sad about that fact that it's hard to go into some towns now and find a guitar store.
Yeah.
But just to finish that, you know, that is retail right now. Go into any, you know, medium-sized market town in the UK and look what shops are open.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of it.
Yeah, it is. So I was in Kempster's in Swindon. So Kempster's a legendary music shop in Swindon. It's where Dave Gregory and Andy Partridge used to go on a Saturday morning and jam together. Nice. And you know, and Jeff Kempster, the guy's been running it forever. You know, same guy.
Nice.
And when I first, that's where I first met Simon Law. He was working there. So Kempster's has got this history in the area, and they've always had great guitars as well, Gibsons and Fenders, and their offering has been small but like really quality. And one of the things that Jeff is experiencing now is that what Gibson and Fender expect you to take as a retailer is impossible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So he still does his, you know, he's got these offers for starter packages and stuff and it keeps him going, and a bunch of musicians in the area want to come and get their bits and pieces. But where he used to be able to sell a couple of, you know, really nice guitars a week, it's harder because they just, you know, he's not going to put up the 50 grand or whatever it needs to have a first shipment of guitars come in.
And the rest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you come on board as a dealer like that with those you're contracted to take those guitars.
Talking about hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tough.
Yeah, it's but it, you know, again, don't want to spend too long on this, but it segues with every discussion about modern consumer society. We all want
Yeah.
cheap,
Yeah.
and we all want
And fast.
available tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all want that. It has a
There's
consequence.
a price for that.
Yeah, there is a price for that, and I think
Yeah.
more people are starting to understand what that price is. So, you know, we all want the cheapest thing, don't we? I use Amazon
Yeah.
to buy stuff because it's going to arrive tomorrow. They've got
Yeah.
everything I want. I'll
Yeah.
check out. I will check out an alternative first. I'll go, have they got it in stock? Can they get it to me for when I need it?
Oh, yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
The answer is usually no.
No,
Yeah.
that's right.
So, you know, good on you, Jeff.
Yeah.
But it's it's dangerous in any, whether you're talking anything. If one entity gains control and power,
Yeah. That's right.
yeah, I'm going to stop there. So yeah, Lee, I hope that explains it a bit. And again, if anyone from PMT is watching, we hope you guys are
Yeah.
okay and that you can find something good to do next. Apparently, Guitar have reached out to some former employees to
Okay, oh,
to
lovely.
see if there's opportunities.
Yeah,
and things.
okay,
So,
great.
Yeah. Simon VRDJ, hey
Hey,
Simon,
g'day, mate.
how are you, bud? He says, evening chat. I'm still eating some of your Barra Brich, is that what it's called? The lovely Welsh cake that you brought for us. Barra.
I can't do it because I know what the Welsh cakes are like, and if I taste one, I won't stop until I finish the whole
This
thing.
is like the fruit cake that's made with tea. It's really lovely.
Oh,
lovely.
okay.
Yeah, it's like a lovely fruit
Yeah.
cake.
I'm half Welsh and I don't know that.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe
There you
it's Barra Brich. Sorry, Simon. Anyway, you brought us some. I'm still munching my way through it. Thank you very much. Evening, chaps. I'm out right now, so I'll miss what's being said. Please take a question from the chat. Much love to everyone. Okay, let's see if we can find a question for you, Simon. Okay, Reese Jones. Reese says, hiya. I've got a weird rattle noise in my amp. I tap the tubes and they make a rattling noise. What's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, microphonics. Yeah. Tubes are microphonic, right? Because they've got big metal elements inside them, right? And they rattle around and they're susceptible to vibration. And the bigger the tube, the bigger the plates in there, and the louder the amp and where those tubes are placed. You know, it's just a bit of a crapshoot sometimes. Some tubes rattle really bad and some don't. Sometimes it bugs people, sometimes it doesn't. If you're lucky, you can replace the power tubes and it'll go away. And if you're unlucky, you'll buy a new pair of power tubes and it'll be just the same. You know? Yeah, it's kind of par for the course with combo amps. I mean, the only sure way to get around it is to use a head and a cab, you know. Even then, you can get it if it's on the cab sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's much better.
Is that why Matt Schofield always has his head off the cab then? Do we think?
I don't know, but possibly.
Yeah.
It's because it's a different thing, right? With if you've got a combo, and if it's like it's exactly the same amplifier or a head and a cab, it's a
Yeah, different. Yeah.
whole different.
I always,
thing.
if I'm playing a Fender amp and it's not rattling like a Banshee, I think there's something wrong with the amp.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, well, there's the
part of
trick.
the
isn't it?
sound.
You turn it up loud enough
Yeah.
that, you know, we were talking about the noise threshold before and the nominal and, you know, the dynamic range and everything. If you turn it up enough, you just won't notice that anymore. That's mix approach.
Yeah. So, okay. It is, once you tune into it though, we feel your pain. It is.
I mean, it could be something else. It could be a cabinet rattle or a speaker rattle.
Yeah.
You know, you can tighten up, make sure your speaker bolts aren't loose and
Oh man,
your reverb tank. And
I want to say ours. We've lost significant time in here. One person's playing, the other one's putting their thumb on something.
Boy.
Is it the handle? Is it the?
For me, it's usually I'm on my own. I'm going,
Yeah.
you know, and everybody in the house is wondering what the heck's going on.
Yeah. No, we feel your pain. Joshua Schwartz. Hello, Joshua.
I see
Actually,
your
we are gonna-
Schwartz is
Sorry, we
as
are going
big
to
as
have
mine.
to speed up a little bit, boys. Joshua Schwartz says, it's my first super chat. Thank you, Joshua.
Oh, thank you, mate.
So I hope I'm doing this right. I'm wondering if you had any thoughts on the Mesa Fillmore 50. It was in a few vids circa 2020. Probably an unfair question since I don't recall 2024. Thanks. I don't think we had the 50. I think maybe we had the 25. Maybe we did.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, so Fillmore, I think, is their sort of evolution of the deluxe reverb.
Oh, okay.
Right. It's kind of American Fender voiced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they were introduced more or less at the same time. The California Tweed
Yeah.
was obviously with a nod to Tweeds, and I want to say the Fillmore was more Black Panel inspired. We just didn't spend enough time with it. Didn't have the opportunity to spend enough time with it. So I'm not sure I've ever heard a Mesa amp yet that I don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
What was the Heartbreaker? Do you remember was that a...
it was kind of Mark 1 derived.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually a 212 combo, but also a head.
God, I'm keeping an eye out.
Yeah, they come up every now and again. It's a good amp, that. Mark 1 with some tweaks.
What was the one, the first time I came here, we played through a Mesa Boogie amp.
Yeah, probably.
And it was yours, I guess.
Probably a Lone Star, I would imagine.
Yeah. I never had one, but I remember that being a good tone.
It
worked to pedals really
well. It was my main amp for years. Did you play many of the Mark series ones?
Yeah.
We've got a hardwood Mark 3 out there.
Caliber 50s.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
nice.
fully crazy.
Yeah.
Joshua, we should. I would like to find one and have a Schwang with one, because I think it's something that I would like. A lot of the things you really dig about classic amps are also the things that drive you mad. So with a deluxe reverb, when you get it up to like 6, 7, it's just ace. It's just a brilliant sound. But then, and in here, swanging away, it's great. I get to a gig and I'm like, oh no, the bottom end's farting out too much, or there's just not enough headroom. And I've always found that what Mesas do is fix all of those problems. But in this environment, can sometimes sound sterile and harsh and like, whoa.
Yeah.
But actually, in a loud band, I'm talking about.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm talking about where you're in a small place, and you often have to be quite loud in a small place if you've got a full band, because there's so much absorption going on, and the amps are banging into the bottom of everyone's legs. Maybe there's soft furnishings everywhere. Quite a different experience than bigging on a bigger stage where you can hear everything.
Yeah.
And in that environment, the last thing you want is a flabby speaker.
Yeah. For sure.
Loads of sag.
But what you can, well, of course, this is going over the top, of course, but you could, if you really like the sound of that little amp and it does something special and it just, you turn it up and it's got a sound, you can take the approach we were talking about earlier on and you can actually fine-tune your clean-up ability to give it some cleans. You can take a line out into some delay and reverb into a bigger amp, and then that small amp becomes the tone generator of the rig.
Nice idea.
And you have a wet, dry rig.
Yeah.
I think we should explore that in a video, Daniel.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
It's definitely within the boundaries of some of the stuff we've been discussing recently.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, nice. So with something like Fry at Power Station.
Yep.
Which
Well,
is
that's a good approach too. Yeah. You can use that. Yeah.
Chris Costabile. Hey Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Simon, you mentioned you make a bass made in BF.
I have made bass versions of various pedals just because people have asked for them occasionally, and essentially the classic black panel or black face style circuit works very well for bass, and a lot of bass players like that sound. So there's a few different things, some different cap values in there to allow the bottom end to get through.
So it's
unimpeded.
predominantly an EQ difference, is it?
It's just making sure that you can pass all the low end, I mean, mainly. There's a couple of different caps, and there's various different versions of that same preamp. That 60s Fender preamp is basically essentially the same across all of their amps in those years. Whether it's a Princeton to a Deluxe to a Super Reverb to a Twin, you name it, they're all built on that same fundamental preamp. Some of them have a bright switch, some of them have a mid knob, right?
Yeah.
But it's the same. It's the same.
Wow.
It's basically the same thing, right? So the Maiden is basically that circuit with with the mid and the bright switch and stuff like that, and an EQ lift. But it's very simple to just change a cap value in there and make it even better for bass. So it works well for bass already, but you can fine tune it more. Yeah. So yes, I can do it. Yeah.
And Chris says, how does that compare to using a juggler?
Well, the juggler is based upon the Dumble ODS preamp, which in itself has a lot to do with that classic Fender circuit, right? So they're not far off. So the clean channel of the juggler is quite close to that Fender circuit. Except I would say the clean channel of the juggler has a little bit, perhaps a little bit more mid-range,
Right.
and the bottom end isn't quite as woofy. It's not voiced as deep.
Right.
You know, the thing with those Fender amps is you know, if you turn the bass up too much, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and so you got to watch that bass, right? It's like, where do you find it on the juggler and on the Maiden? It's a little easier to dial in that low end without it becoming woofy.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit tighter. It's a little bit tighter with smoother mids. That's the main difference. But it's you can play bass with the juggler. I would probably, again, if you wanted one specifically for that, I would probably change your cap value, but that's about it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain is obviously going mad now because I play bass in a pub band.
Yeah.
And
Well, try it, you know, see
I
if
am
you
gonna
like
try
it,
it.
you know. If it doesn't have enough bass, as I say, it's just a coupling cap thing.
I'm right on the edge at the moment of buying an SVT, and I just don't want to do it because they are so heavy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They're insane. But the 100-watt one is just not quite enough.
Really?
Yeah.
Just not
Bass,
quite.
yeah.
Like, just minutely not quite. Anyway.
Yeah.
Fender Jeff. Hello, Fender
Hey,
Jeff.
Fender Jeff.
Dan, on your new board, why did you choose the Ibanez AD9 for your slapback instead of the Boss DM2 or an Analog Man or something else?
Because I've had that 89 since I was 23, so 30 years I've had that pedal. And whenever I've used it for that specific job, for slapback, it has always sounded magnificent. And I could have used the DM2, I could have used the red knob, I could have even used the blue knob,
Chase Bliss.
Chase Bliss, what's it called?
Tonal Recall.
Tonal
Yeah.
Recall. I could have used any of them and it would have sounded great, but the AD9, I've always loved them. I've got the AD808 as well, which is fantastic, and that's the 18-volt version, but it's darker than the AD9. And that particular pedal, I've had it so long, and it still sounds
Yeah.
freaking awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So-
what I thought you were going to say is EQ. Ultimately, it's EQ, isn't it?
Completely.
Because some analog delays are crazy dark,
Yeah.
and some are
Yeah.
unusual to find one that's very bright. But
Yeah,
where does it sit?
exactly. And it just sits in the right place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a single slap, half the level of the original sound, and not super tight, but tight enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just magic. And I don't need, with that on, I don't need to add a boost for a solo.
Nice.
It just pops it out. It's
Yeah.
just magnificent.
Lovely.
Nice. Lefty O Bass says, ahoy there, peg legs. No question, but I was pleased to meet a fellow TPSer in the wild while grabbing a coffee in Bristol today. I heartily recommended the experience, Days. Thank you very much, Lefty.
Brilliant.
That's kind of you.
Thank you,
It
mate.
is nice to meet TPS people in the wild.
Yeah.
Normally, if you wear that pedal show T-shirt, someone
Yeah.
in the street
Stand
will
out.
go, "You as well."
Yeah.
Pete Brown, hey Pete, nice to hear from you. He says, when playing live with a stereo rig, how do you work with the PA system? A lot, if not most, house PA systems are running mono. Are they really? Wow.
Yeah, the stereo. So the only thing stereo on my rig is the delays, but I do use them quite a lot. But the stereo thing is from my experience on stage.
Exactly.
That's it. And I just get this massive thing, and I'm loving it. The guy at the front can do what he likes.
Yeah.
And if he sums it, it sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, especially the wet dry thing. It doesn't, you sum it straight down the center, it's awesome.
Yeah.
If you've got an amp that's just completely dry on one side and completely wet on the other, you get your sound on stage, and then depending on what's going on in the room, then the sound guy's got the ability to go, it's a bit bouncy in here tonight, I'm going to pull the
That's
wet
right.
back a bit.
Yeah, that's right.
Or, you've managed to fill the place.
Yeah,
You're going to add a bit more wet.
Yeah.
But the stereo thing, it's...
And with no, again, I with absolutely no disrespect to sound professionals, but there are plenty of sound professionals who don't get wet dry.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
what is it stereo? Do I pan it left and right?
Right.
And then you're sort of having to explain something to Sound Professional, which always feels off to me because you don't want to be condescending, you don't want to be unkind or rude or anything. Because, you know, with this, like, for example, the thing we did on Saturday night, loads of bands in and out, they're working their asses off. It's a boiling hot day, they're doing an amazing job carrying stuff around on stage, and then some arsehole turns up and says, "Can I have 2 mics, please?"
Yeah.
Which was me.
Yeah.
And he was very gracious and he set it up. And then what I don't want to say to him is, just pan him straight down the middle and just whatever you think sounds best, because those words don't need to come out of my mouth.
Right.
He knows that.
Yeah.
He knows to just do whatever he thinks sound best. And you've just got to let them have it at that point, haven't you? Trust them to do their great job, which he did.
You mentioned about only having, asking for 2 mics.
Yeah.
I've been in multiple situations where you feel bad about that. Right?
Yeah, I
Which
did.
is kind of, I always thought it was crazy because how
I
many
did.
mics does a drummer have?
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're the guitar player, you better only ask for 1, right?
But if you're there on yourself, you can say, "Oh, look, the second guitar player is going to be here in a minute. Just set up his mic."
You can do, but
Well,
then
the gig-
move his.
The gig the week before, no, was the answer.
Oh, wow, yeah. But you know how I've got around that is I've taken my stereo rig or a wet dry rig and I just take 2 mics and I've actually got a little mixer device, so I just send them 1 signal. So I still have the stereo mix or the wet dry thing. Because that's mainly it, and it still comes off stage.
Yeah.
Out there, and then the sound
Then
guy's
you can
happy,
use the
and I
mics
don't.
you like, and you're giving him the signal.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do anything. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great shout.
No, I want to, Dustin, this is after your comment last week. I want to be sending love to Sound Professionals because you are busy at this point.
You can move it in minor thirds, of course, because it's diminished.
I was going to say it sounds a bit diminished.
It is totally diminished because that chord is from the diminished scale, right?
Someone's going to hit somebody with a hammer on a cartoon in a minute,
No, what did you play?
aren't they?
Oh, you played. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you.
That. And just.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you can just move that in minor thirds. I mean, that's the beauty of the diminished scale, right? Sorry, tangent, but
Yeah.
yeah. So any chord like from. Move it in minor thirds, right? And if you're not sure where to go with it, just go full octave, and then you'll be back to where you started, right?
No, we don't have time.
Okay.
That's the answer.
Sorry.
You can play us out by all means, but we've got a bit more filming to do after this, which is why I'm being grumpy producer.
No worries. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I'm front of house guy. Next band needs to get on. Ewan Cook. I'm gonna confidently say the way to pronounce Oisin is Ewan, and I really hope it is. And it might be Owen. So anyway, Oisin, Owen, or Ewan, or something else, because it's one of those Irish names. Cook says, "Greetings from Nashville.
Greetings.
Question for Dan today. Can I use the 2 outs on my G3 for switching between using my board with and without an amp? I'm thinking of putting one of the UA pedals after out 2 for gigs with silent stages."
Absolutely. Yeah, you can totally do that. The only thing...
Are they both isolated?
The output 2 is isolated. So the only issue is then you don't have an earth connection.
Right.
So that could be a thing. I mean, look, it depends on what you can do. It depends on the bypass nature of the pedal. You can just have a single output, go to your Walrus ACS1 or whatever it is. As long as it goes into a really good true bypass state, then you'll be okay just to kick it on if you need it.
Right.
And that's fine. And then if you want to use, if you're doing stereo, then you can use both outputs into the in and out, and you're still golden. But you need to make sure that you've got that earth connection. Now, the other thing is on your G3, if you take the front panel off and you use a chopstick, you'll see a little switch inside. If you want to do it like that, you can establish an earth connection on output 2. So that if that's the way you want to run it, you want output 1, or that's the amp output 2. If that ever goes on, that's going to be to front of house. But I'm not going to have this now. I'm not going to have any earth connection from output 1. This is only going to a DI. Then you can do it like that and establish an earth connection in output 2.
2 more suggestions, and Dan will tell me if I'm right or wrong. Suggestion number 1 may not be applicable to you, but if you haven't used all 12 loops, put it in a loop.
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
That would make
be it.
sense. But if you have already used all 12 loops, maybe don't do that. What about the aux tuner insert?
So, yeah, that's great. That what happens is that sits before the loops.
Oh, does it? So you can't move the position.
You
of
can't
that?
move the position of it.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's why that's there. If you're using a Germanium fuzz or a treble booster, as I am, it means that you've got a programmable loop that sits before the pre-gain.
Right.
So that you've still got, if you
Nice.
want to use your pre-gain as a boost or whatever, you can still kick it on, but the input of the pedal is still seeing the inductance of the coil and the
Yeah.
impedance of the pickup
Yeah.
without, because sometimes, like, I'm using my old Java boost and a buffer after it sounds fantastic. Buffer before it just sounds like
of course. Yeah.
trash.
Yes,
Not
yes.
so much.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it means that I can be on a sound with the buffer on
Yeah.
and kick it on, and it's not affected by the buffer.
That's right, yeah.
So it works great.
There you go. Hopefully one of those things will work for you. Yeah. Okay, final question. Perilous Temple, thank you for your continued support and comments and always being here. Thank you. It goes for all of our regulars and all the new people as well. We really appreciate you being with us. He says, no real question, just sharing my joy over seeing you three together again.
Lovely.
Simon, would you please build a Rotosphere inspired pedal?
I would love to. Let me get the reverb thing happening first, and the harmonic tremolo, and and then maybe Rotosphere would be great. But I'm tempted to do like an amp style thing. Like you can get the whole rotating speaker thing, as you guys know,
It's
is
just
just
hard.
magic, right?
Yeah.
It's just magic. So to actually get that physical thing in the room without buying
Oh
separate
my
Leslie.
goodness. Yeah. Whenever we've done it, and there are some really fantastic Leslie pedals out there. As soon as we kick on a rotating speaker, be it Leslie or the Fender one, the Vibratone,
yeah.
as soon as you're changing the physical properties, and as soon as you're moving air in the room,
Yeah.
it's a vastly different experience. And it's just, unfortunately, they all sound great until you hear the real thing
That's
next
right,
to it.
yeah.
And it's like,
That's especially in the room though. Like recorded, it's slightly
no, recorded,
different.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Because recorded is a different thing, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like the way they fill up the room.
I know. Yeah.
It's a magical thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to build one of them?
Well, no, I'm not saying I'm going to build one of them, but I've been tempted to experiment with, like for years ago, I've messed with like ways of getting that rotating sound in the room with a device that sits in front of your speaker.
Oh, yeah,
So you just
okay.
chuck it on the floor in front of your amp.
I think
Yeah,
what you could do is put the amp in the middle of the room and then put the room on a rotating device.
Yeah, you could do that. That's a good
just
one,
move
yeah.
the room around the amp. I think.
I'm going to get one of my
That's
grandkids just to hold the amp and
Yeah.
run around
Especially
with
when
it.
you kick on the high speed switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
I know someone developing a new rotary pedal
Ah,
Yeah.
fantastic.
that isn't digital.
Mm.
Okay, Simon and Daniel, why don't you play us out? We'll say thank you for being with us. Simon, thanks so much for joining
Oh,
us.
thank you guys so much.
There's a new video coming out with Simon in the next few weeks that we are in the middle of filming right now. So yeah, thank you very much
Thanks
for coming to see
Thanks
us.
very much,
It's always
Rick and Dan. You're so kind, and I'm just thrilled and chuffed to be on the show. Such great company, and the guys you have on the show, I was just dumbfounded with the level of all the musicians you guys know and have on and play. It's crazy. So to be allowed to come here and talk like I know what I'm talking about capacitors and shit, and play fake jazz licks and stuff like that, it's just like I've got you guys fooled. Obviously, I don't know.
cool. All right, Simon and Dan are going to play us out, and we'll see you Friday for a show, just an old-fashioned pedal show on Friday with 5 cool pedals, and then we'll see what happens after that.